Africa split apart, the planet's largest tropical rainforest was already in place. But a mighty river, flowing from the emerging landscape east to west, was altered as the Andes mountain range thrust up from the Earth's crust, blocking the river's flow, creating vast lakes and, in time, reversing the flow of the river from west to east into the Atlantic Ocean. Over millions of years, this region exploded with life to become what we now know as the Amazon. The name itself evokes adventure, exotic beauty, remoteness, and danger. But few truly understand or appreciate the global importance of this region. With a rainforest as large as the continental United States and 1/4 of all species on the planet, the Amazon basin is on a scale beyond borders, beyond even continents. Influencing the climate of the entire planet, the basin is home to over 30 million people and part of 9 countries. 20% of the world's fresh water flows from the Amazon, changing the Atlantic Ocean for 125 miles out to sea. In spite of the enormous scale of this tropical rainforest basin, scientific evidence increasingly has revealed how fragile this ecosystem is and how what happens here will influence global climate dramatically, possibly irreversibly, within the next 10 to 20 years. Reports of ominous change have come to light in the 25 years since Jean-Michel Cousteau first explored this region. Concerned about the sustainability of the rainforest and its global impact on climate and the oceans, he and his team have returned to sound the alarm and search for reasons for hope. For his son and daughter, Fabien and Céline, as well as the entire team, it will be a life-changing expedition. They'll explore the rich rainforest in both the dry and wet seasons, traveling days upriver into black water tributaries to encounter the Amazon's unique aquatic species. They'll endure the rugged hardships of crossing this wild and diverse region, including areas that are now completely deforested for cattle and agriculture, such as soybeans. And they'll enter the innermost Amazon, where the conflict between enterprise and the environment has become a true life and death struggle for both wildlife and the indigenous people of the forest, who may hold the key to sustainability. For Jean-Michel personally, this will be an important mission to reveal our connection to the Amazon and how the Amazon may alter our future. He begins his journey with a visit to one of the largest landowners in Brazil and an old friend. Dr. Rita Bernardino was inspired by Jacques Cousteau 25 years ago to build the Ariel Amazon Towers, 35 miles north of Manaus on the Rio Negro, and the first hotel complex at tree level in the Amazon rainforest.
When the group of Jacques Cousteau arrived, your father,
E ele me disse assim: faça hotel na floresta que o mundo inteiro vai querer ver.
and he said to Dr. Rita, make a hotel in the jungle because everybody around the world is gonna go to meet the forest.
Porque a floresta
Because
amazônica é a
the
maior
Amazon forest is the biggest in the world, and it's also the forest that have the biggest destruction.
Because the Ario Towers Hotel was built to be among the trees, it also allows guests the opportunity to witness the dramatic change in seasons in the Amazon. The dry season, which lasts from June to November, and the wet season, from November to May. Here the waters can rise as much as 30 feet.
May I invite you to Casa de Tarzan Jacques Cousteau.
All right.
And there's a plaque inside.
We're in here?
Yeah, right up there. That, that was during the Amazon expedition, and it was Kacha, and we had a monkey, and Lost in the Jungle, Calypso. I mean, this has been a great honor that Helen and Rita and her father honored us when we came here.
You know, there have been very striking differences since the first time I was here when
when I was 14 on the expedition with my grandfather and my father. The most striking is the abundance of people that there are here versus in 1982-83. Just landing in Manaus, which was less than 400,000 people when we were here back then, and coming back now where there are over 2 million people, there's a striking difference.
More than 900 miles from the sea, Manaus is the Amazon River's chief city, connecting its bounty to the world, dating back to the rubber boom of the 1800s. It's also from a bustling Manaus that the rainforest riches are exported to foreign markets hungry for the Amazon's abundance, but as the team will discover, with consequences that have been staggering. From here, the team's investigation and adventure begin. Over the next 10 months, they will constantly load and unload over 100 pieces of cargo and heavy equipment.
Last case, all right.
Together and in smaller teams, they will travel over 6,000 miles of river, where often their only company will be each other.
Big flat!
We're ready to go upriver.
Upriver means along the Rio Negro, famous for its black waters stained by the trees of the inundated forest. Traveling north into the state of Roraima, the team enters the Shishua Reserve and its protected territory, a chance to dive in pristine, remote waters. Even for these seasoned divers, their years at sea will be useless to help them predict what the river holds.
Okay?
Yeah, everything's good.
Let's get in the water and let's float downriver for about an hour and a half. We're gonna stay together as a tight-knit group on the way down. If we find something, then we'll work our way back into the deeper part of the river.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds like a plan.
Familiar with the blue waters of the sea, the divers must now adapt to the tannin amber of the rainforest river. There are close to 200 species of snakes in the Amazon. 54 are venomous, 6 are dangerous to people, and the divers aren't sure if this is one of them. It won't be until after the dive that they discover that this snake, a jararaca, is harmless. Below, as above water, navigation is completely among the trees of the forest. The divers are using rebreather technology, which does not produce bubbles that can startle wildlife, but it makes tracking the divers from the surface more of a challenge.
Ah, there they are down there.
Diver dead ahead.
Yeah.
With 3,000 species of fish identified out of a suspected 5,000, the Amazon contains at least twice as many species as the entire Atlantic Ocean. This includes the stingray, left over from a forgotten time when a prehistoric ocean reached into what is now the Amazon River basin. More than 20 species of stingray hide in the Amazon's waters, equipped with ancient eyes like periscopes that are adapted to the low light of the river. Its barbed tail, more like a dinosaur, hides a venomous spine for defense when hiding fails. It took the team over 30 hours to reach the reserve from Manaus by boat, but a float plane can make the trip in 4 hours. For Jean-Michel, however, his trek will be longer, and not without incident.
Salut!
Salut,
la
papa.
puce. Ça va?
Super.
Ouais?
Ouais.
Est-ce qu'on a été obligé de faire un emergency landing?
Pourquoi?
Parce que le moteur...
It's a good thing it was a float plane.
it's a lot of... Hey! I wouldn't fly.
Real good.
anything other than the floodplain in the Amazon? All kinds of bugs?
Only black flies, wasps, hornets, bees, mosquitoes, unidentifiable leeches. Got a leech on the tail.
Nice. That's it?
The first time I came to the Amazon was in 1984. After 1984, every year I came back to the Amazon and went to lots of different parts of the Amazon, but I always came back here as well. And so I got to know these people better and better. They had no schools for their children, they had no health assistance, and basically there was just like all over the Amazon a massive exodus to the slum areas of Manaus and other cities like that. And the idea we came up with was to form this association. And all of the local people from around here who had land holdings in this area, in the Xixou and the Xiparina, sold them to the association and became members of the association. So basically they sold them to themselves.
This nearly 700 square mile reserve of 120 people was created as an extractive reserve, allowing the people living there to use the resources, but protecting it from any use by all outsiders, prohibiting agriculture, commercial fishing, and logging.
The whole objective from the very beginning of our project was to prove that you can preserve a pristine area of the Amazon by improving the standard of living of the local people. So they have to have certain standards of living. They have to have schools for their children. They have to have certain basic necessities covered. Otherwise, of course, how can you blame somebody for killing a jaguar if it's going to feed his family for a week by selling the skin? You can't. You've got to provide an alternative to that. Right. But I think that's one of the problems. Most conservation projects are invented and applied from outside. Nobody actually spends the time with the local people to find out what they really need and what they really think about things, because they're the key to the success of a project like this.
The people of Xixou, much like their ancestors, live a communal life, sharing the work and the bounty of the forest, fishing, hunting, and cultivating crops like manioc, a starchy staple of the diet throughout the Amazon basin.
My experience is that once they are given an alternative and they can see that their life is getting better, not only are they willing to preserve, they're really, really proud to do it.
In Xixou, the quality of life has improved, with a more secure future from land ownership, education, and modern medical attention so needed to fight epidemics of malaria, introduced from foreign contact, and hepatitis, both largely untreated. But there is also great value in the nearly forgotten traditional knowledge of the forest and its powerful medicinal uses.
Essa daqui é uma planta para contra veneno de cobra.
This is a plant called cobra mirá.
Pega e raspa assim.
So they take a little piece of here, boil it in the water, and drink it. And it's used for snake bites.
Essa planta aqui o nome é tartaruguinha.
Means what?
Little turtle. Turtle?
Turtle.
Every plant has its nickname. They extract like a liquid from it, and they put over any kind of itchings, and that cure the itches.
We need a bottle of this.
We need a lot of it.
It's called cipó-cururu. It's for muscle pain.
It's for cuts and scrapes?
From what I understand, the people now don't want to deal with the plants and as medicine. What do? They buy medicine, drugs from the pharmacy? Is that what they do?
A gente usa, quer dizer,
Yeah, you're right. He's saying most of the people are using regular medicine they buy in farm shops. But he doesn't treat people with regular medicine. He only uses plants.
Well, I understand. But what it means is that what he does is being lost, and now people have to have money to go and buy the medicine when it's right there at their doorstep.
My guys here, a lot of them used to be professional hunters. And now what we have are photographers, scientists, television crews coming in, and their hunting skills haven't lessened any. Maybe even, in fact, they've gotten better because
the better observers.
Well, to get a camera crew close to a wild animal to be able to film it is a lot more difficult than one of them getting close enough to shoot it.
Right.
In the Amazon, the challenge is not only to find animals, but to find water clear enough to film them. Silt and debris from the forest make the water cloudy at best and completely opaque in many places. But it's underwater where Jean-Michel, Fabien, and Céline can best see for themselves the dynamic interaction between river and forest. And there's no river creature that looks more like the forest than the mata-mata turtle. Perfectly camouflaged, resembling a pile of fallen leaves, the mata-mata breathes through a nose like a snorkel and feeds by lunging at unsuspecting fish. Found only in the rivers of South America, its appearance is a phenomenon of time and place. Curious, the turtle investigates Jean-Michel, and for the mata-mata, it turns out it's not love at first sight. Very few of the Amazon's rivers have been explored beneath the surface. So throughout this maze, the only thing predictable is the unexpected, and it's around every turn. This time, it's the jacare, or caiman, one of the river's most common and ancient residents. The Amazon version of the crocodile, essentially unchanged for 18 million years. The largest grow to 20 feet, but most of the 5 caiman species are smaller and, at least by reputation, not aggressive. They are, though, equipped with menacing teeth, which are constantly replaced when worn. But their teeth haven't been enough to protect them from illegal hunting for their skins. Worldwide, an estimated 20 million crocodiles and caimans have been killed in the last 50 years for the fashion industry alone. For most people, a purse or a pair of shoes is as close as they will ever get to a caiman. But for Jean-Michel, Fabien, and Céline, their experience with this ancient animal has been very personal. Through the ages, though, the reptile that was most important to indigenous people was the turtle. By the mid-1800s, however, Europeans harvested 48 million turtle eggs annually for export as food and cooking oil. Naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace reported in 1848 that 5 million eggs were collected from just one beach. Now, in Mamiroa, another protected reserve, there are urgent efforts to bring back the abundance of this docile animal, once so closely linked to the Amazon River and its people.
Why is it so important to protect turtles?
They are actually protecting the beaches, and the beaches are the natural environment for other species such as snakes, lizards, aquatic birds. So protecting the turtles, they are indirectly protecting all other species we can see around here.
What is the process of conservation?
They keep them for a few months, so they get rid of the smell of the egg, the smell that attracts predators, and also they get stronger. Their cover gets stronger, so they could be safer in the natural environment. He tries to attend all the community meetings, so he can get some people involved. And after that, when he finds the individuals who wants to participate on this project, he trains them. So they spend 5 days together, teaching simple techniques of how to transfer the eggs to a safer place and how to take care of them. Most of the communities are interested, especially because they used to see when they were kids and their fathers and grandfathers telling them how many animals used to be here. Those beaches used to be covered of turtles and birds, and now what they saw, that was not happening anymore.
This year, more than 12,000 baby turtles of 3 different species are released to the river, and it's believed that about 30% will survive.
Oh, he's feisty.
Developing new methods to preserve species is one small piece of the puzzle when it comes to a sustainable Amazon. For the team, months of work and many questions still lie ahead. They return to Manaus, where they restock their provisions and disperse into separate teams in order to cover more ground and investigate different issues. One basic question still to be answered is how much of the Amazon forest needs to be preserved to maintain the ecosystem and protect the health of the planet. Scientists have approached this question methodically by dividing the forest into fragments of different sizes and observing how much of the forest's complex plant and animal life can survive.
This area of the Central Amazon is known as a hotspot for biodiversity. The secret of the high biodiversity is the interconnected mechanisms and processes. So if you break in one of these chains, the whole process is gone. So what we want to understand is what happened with the forest, with the dynamics, with the functioning, and with its biodiversity if the fragments of the forest becoming smaller and smaller. In the original design of the study, we planned to have 1 hectare, 10 hectares, and 100 hectares fragments. This one is 1 hectare fragment.
1 hectare is 100 meters by 100 meters.
Exactly.
So if I understand correctly, species of animals are disappearing because there is not enough space for them to live in that small, tiny area.
1 hectare fragment is too small for almost everything, animals and plants. But from 10 hectares on, it's possible to keep some of the biodiversity, both plant and animals, within it.
So to preserve all the species, how big of a space we need?
That is one question that, unfortunately, all our results is leading us to a point that we should keep the whole forest standing. I would say let's use everything else that is already deforested and leave what is standing in as it is right now.
Right now, is 17% of the forest area has gone in 30 years.
In 30 years?
30 years. We lost 17%. Around 20,000 square kilometers per year. So we already lost in 30 years an area larger than France. Imagine France completely destroyed.
Size of Texas.
Yeah, the size of Texas, exactly.
The Amazon's contribution is as a global air conditioner, creating rain and storing carbon. 50% of the moisture for rain in the Amazon is released directly from the trees, so fewer trees means less rain. And when cut, trees release stored carbon dioxide, increasing global warming. Scientists predict that if 30 to 40% of the Amazon forest is cut, it will pass a tipping point, becoming too dry to survive.
The last 4 years, we have been working intensely. More than 80% of the Amazon rainforest is still preserved. And here, it's still possible to do things in a different way from what was done in other parts of the world. But this is an enormous challenge.
Part of the challenge faced by the government is to overcome recent history and even its own policies, which have actually encouraged deforestation. The massively deforested state of Mato Grosso is a prime example, where cutting the forest gave farmers legal ownership of the land.
At first, you were involved in lumber mills. What made you decide to change from wood to farming?
Yeah, I had no intention of being a farmer. I'm more in the wood business. But when I bought my land, it was all forest. And if I didn't open it up and turn it into pasture, I could lose the land. Because there is a federal institution called INCRA that would take my land away, saying it wasn't productive. So you actually have to prove this land is productive in order to maintain it. I had to open it up and raise cattle. In the early 80s, it was a time of military dictatorship. And the government had lots of incentives, economic incentives to bring people from the south to this part of Brazil, to this part of the Amazon, that at that time was considered a green desert. No one used to live here. There was only forest here, so the aim was to occupy this place, not to lose it to foreign countries. And at the time, there was nothing related to the environment. So the idea was to take the forest down and plant crops and cattle.
In Mato Grosso's neighboring state, Rondônia, Blair and Plinio experienced the effects on the forest of what farmers and ranchers do to obtain title to unclaimed land. They burn everything, including massive, valuable trees. In early 2007, satellites recorded 72,000 fires burning in the Brazilian Amazon at the same time. Although now illegal, it's nearly impossible to enforce, so the waste continues. Not all farmers let this valuable wood go to waste. At this small farm, also claimed by cutting the forest years ago for legal ownership, the tree is cut to be sold for profit. The team gets an up-close look. Perhaps too close.
Is it coming this way? Yep.
I thought it was supposed to go the other way.
We were just there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Whoa, look at all the water coming out.
Brazil exports massive amounts of wood in an industry that is plagued with controversy, corruption, and illegal practices, and one that is nearly impossible to police. And because of an international market demanding wood, this industry continues to thrive in spite of the consequences. Illegally obtaining the lumber isn't the only problem. In the process to bring it to market, more than 70% of the wood harvested is wasted.
The Western countries must stop the buying or the commerce of wood from the Amazon in the way they are making now.
Right.
And are exploited in an unsustainable way without any management, and exploiting the local communities and the Indians, because they are the guys that cut the trees but sell the timber very cheap, no? There are loggers that pay 3 kilos of sugar for a mahogany. You can imagine?
For one full tree.
From one full tree. So when the people buy a desk of mahogany from the Peruvian Amazon, they are paying a cent to the Indian, $100 or $200 to the chain of people that is making money from this exploitation. We need to say the people, when they buy a wooden artifact from the Amazon, they are, it's hard to say, but they are buying something stained with blood and with exploitation. I can say you that the mahogany taken out from the Amazon now is stained with blood.
Now this is hard wood.
Well, some of these are mahogany.
Okay.
The others are cedar. Do you know that 95% of this logging here is all illegal? The culprits really are us, because most of this, about 50% of these logs, are going to the United States and another 30% to Europe, and the rest of it, the rest of the world.
So no permits until it gets here, and now it's okay.
Well, once it gets to the mills, apparently, it becomes legal because they didn't cut the trees down.
Right, right.
Which is another loophole in the system.
The illegal loggers don't have planning. They don't have any idea of environmental. Their mind is not prepared for that. Immediate profit is what they are looking for. We need to attend a lot of technical details to have the forest standing up, but with sustainability.
Euclides Louise Rieksiegel manages the Sustainable Forest Program at Jari, a colossal project founded in the 1960s by American billionaire Daniel Ludwig to make paper from imported trees. It became a massive disaster, ecologically, financially, and in human cost, but valuable lessons were learned. The Brazilian group Orsa took control, and Jari now has become a success, exporting sustainable paper pulp and lumber.
Low impact logging. This is really important for the forest. We are using the FSC system. Forest Stewardship Council is a certification system, one of the more famous in the world for forest sustainable programs, okay? They have very strong rules to attend, okay? We are expending around 30–40% more money to produce the logs, the lumber, okay? But we have a stamp. The FFC give us a stamp that guarantee for the consumer that we are doing a good program, that we are attending to the rules internationally recognized.
Can Jari be a model for land that has been deforested or abandoned?
In those areas where already is deforested areas, okay, we are trying to make the communities, okay, grow eucalyptus.
Australian eucalyptus trees are fast growing here, reaching more than 100 feet tall in 6 years, compared to 30 years in Europe, and they grow hardy in the poor Amazon soil. Saplings grown in vast nurseries will replace the mature trees harvested for pulp. Felled trees are stripped at the rate of 120 per hour.
So every time I blow my nose, I'm blowing my nose in eucalyptus.
Yep. Right.
The planting of eucalyptus trees on deforested areas does reclaim that land for sustainable use, but it doesn't replace the rich complexity of the rainforest and the diversity of life it makes possible. Recognizing this, the current Brazilian Forest Code specifies that all landowners must set aside 80% of their forested property as a legal reserve, but enforcement remains a challenge.
Today, the Brazilian government is facing the deforestation problem with a national deforestation combat plan. It's a process which has to combine command, control, and governance, and which has to simultaneously present new opportunities with respect to biodiversity and local communities. And in the last 4 years, due to these efforts, deforestation was reduced more than 50%.
It's a slow process, turning the tide in this vast region, and the arrival of a recent agricultural alternative has raised the threat of additional deforestation for the growing of soybeans.
Soya arrived in Brazil in the early 80s, more or less. Is a species that not from this region, not even from this continent, yeah? Came from Asia. And what you need is very large areas of flat land, and you plant the seed with big machines. The productivity in Brazil is larger than in the US per hectare. The labor force is cheaper, and the land costs almost nothing because most of part of this land is invaded by farmers. And Brazil has water and soil and sun. So it's perfect for agriculture. And agriculture is destroying the Amazon.
Brazil is now the world's largest exporter of soybeans, part of a market that has exploded on the international scene. In the US alone, roughly 60% of all processed foods contain some soy. But nearly half of Brazilian soy is exported to Europe as animal feed for beef and chicken. In 2004, Cargill, one of the world's largest food suppliers, opened their Santarém port facility, which coincided with a 10-year high in deforestation. Greenpeace responded with global protests and targeted the Santarém port. The resulting controversy led to the Responsible Soy Project, and a moratorium requiring that any soy purchased had to be grown on previously deforested land. Cargill is a willing participant.
We respect all the laws in all countries that we do business. And more than that, we do everything in this company with high ethical standards. We are not going to buy any grains from the farmers which are destroying the environment, zero. We are not going to buy beans or corn or any other crops from farms that are cutting trees, are doing some deforestation. In 2 years' time, In those 2 years' time, we're going to sit down and discuss what we're going to do with that.
But the environmental impact of soy on Brazil is complex, and there are issues that go beyond what the moratorium can accomplish.
Most of the soybeans, however, are still being planted in the Cerrado, in the central Brazilian scrublands, not in the tropical rainforest areas. But even that has a tremendous influence on deforestation here, because that's what gives the justification for the infrastructure, building highways that then lead to deforestation. The main controversy at the moment is the BR-163 highway from Santarém to Cuiabá in Mato Grosso. And that is to be reconstructed and paved in order to carry soybeans from the northern part of the state of Mato Grosso to ports on the Amazon River at Santarém. And a lot of the deforestation that then can be expected to spread out from that highway will not be directly for planting soybeans, but for cattle pasture. You'll have more logging, you have all sorts of things going on that lead to loss of the forest, and it all goes back to the soybeans.
The effect of roads on the rainforest landscape is dramatic. The main passage from east to west through the Amazon basin is the Trans-Amazonian Highway, seen from space as a scar across the continent caused by the fishbone effect spreading out from the road. Unpaved roads offer limited access, especially during the wet season. But paved or unpaved, 85% of all deforestation occurs within 30 miles on either side of the road. The team travels the long road to the Peruvian border, where the interoceanic highway is under construction, designed to unite the Atlantic coast with the Pacific over the Andes and to vastly increase traffic.
Mira, lo que estamos viendo en la parte de al frente del río, Madre de Dios.
What we're seeing here across the river is the beginning of the building of the Interoceanic Highway here in Peru. The paving started at the border with Brazil, and they're working their way this way. As soon as the bridge gets built, the road will continue on through the town of Puerto Maldonado and all the way to the highway that runs north and south from Cusco. Now, what this means to the city is that the Interoceanic Highway will go right through the city, right through the center of town. He estimates every 13 seconds there will be one truck with soy going through the middle of the city.
Personas de las universidades del Pacífico.
The Pacific University did a workshop, the conclusion of the workshop when they were talking about this area and what was most economically viable is to have it all be soy. 100 kilometers on each side of the highway, which means complete deforestation for 200 kilometers across.
Un objetivo de nuestra región.
The presence of this highway is actually a positive thing in that it will connect them to other communities and other places. However, he asks for the help to develop this area as an ecotourism destination so that the resources that they have here will continue to exist, and it will bring them something that's financially viable. It will bring them something that is sustainable. They do not want this town to just be a drive-through.
Increased ecotourism is a positive piece of the puzzle, and the good example is the Mamirwa Sustainable Development Reserve. The journey to Mamirwa requires another long river passage for the team, allowing for some much-needed R&R and a chance to reflect on the demands of the expedition so far.
Living with a group of people in a very, very intense situation in close quarters where we're getting up a couple of times at 3 in the morning to beat the sunrise and then to be out there fighting the bugs and dealing with the mud and fatigue and, you know, the whole tropical issue was really great. And I've just been so pleased to see that every single member of our team has really put out to their supreme ability.
People are working round the clock, and that's what brings the team together as a whole, counting on each other, relying on each other.
Certainly, having Jacques Cousteau and Jean-Michel on board historically has been very, very important because both of them had the ability to get people to rise above their petty issues and work as a team, one functioning unit.
The long hours and hard work will pay off as they reach their destination, a remote reserve of breathtaking beauty. Covering more than 4,000 square miles, the Mamiroa Reserve is Brazil's first protected area, seeking to balance the preservation of biodiversity with the economic needs of the local population.
When the reserve was created, there was a series of economic alternatives that were implemented: fisheries management, forest management, and ecotourism. So the idea of ecotourism is to generate income to the population. So they promote conservation in order to attract even more tourists and generate more benefits. What is the role of the Wakari Lodge? Okay, so this is a community-based lodge which has 10 rooms. All our staff is local. All the profits go into a community fund.
This ecotourism resort floats on large tree trunks, rising as much as 35 feet between the dry and wet seasons. Contained sewage systems and solar power are only some of the practices used here to limit environmental impacts while providing guests with a very personal encounter with the Amazon. Lookout posts closer to the canopy allow visitors to observe treetop mammals. Hiking trails turn into flooded canals in the rainy season, inviting boat excursions through the rainforest to explore its diverse species, such as the piranha tree, a nightmarish-looking hardwood so dense it's practically impervious to water, or a reptile equally nightmarish to some, the biggest snake in the world, the anaconda. The largest surpass 30 feet and 500 pounds. It squeezes its prey to death and swallows it whole, including deer, caiman, and even jaguars. It moves powerfully among the treetops and on the forest floor, but it hunts in the river. A fact not lost on Celine and Murphy as they chance a closer encounter. Hunting mostly at night, it basks in the forest and the shallows by day, digesting its meal, waiting weeks, even months before hunting again.
So how do you think the tourism benefits nature? Well, since tourism has started here, we've had an increase on population of different animals like pirarucu and caimans, because local people have seen that these animals are tourist attractions as well, so people would like to come see the wildlife that we have in abundance here. So in that sense, tourism helps promote conservation because people want to come here and learn from the ecosystem and see this beautiful wildlife. So not only are the local people benefiting from getting jobs, they are also learning conservation because of the interest of the tourist. Yes. What is the greatest benefit of being inside the Mamirawa Reserve?
Para mim, na minha mente, foi o ecoturismo, né?
She's saying it was ecotourism because beforehand, the stuff that she planted, she likes to plant, so the stuff that she planted, she couldn't sell to
A
anyone.
gente vende as coisas que a gente planta, com bem o trabalho corta, né?
She had to give it away to her neighbors. But now everything that she plants, she can sell. And there are a lot of jobs as well for tourism. So she thinks the best benefit was that.
Que é esse?
Esse é o dente do jacaré.
Jacaré? Ah, the caiman.
Outras pessoas que pegam assim para comer.
Aí tira o dente. So a fisherman caught the caiman to eat it. And you took two. Where do you see this village in the future?
Para a gente ir para a cidade comprar.
She hopes that in the future the community will improve, the quality of life will be better. They've learned also that they can protect the area, that this area is theirs, and they've been alerted not to let people from outside come in and get all the resources out. 50 years ago, when this village was founded, they chose this spot because it was really close to the river. The main Amazon River channel used to go right in front of this of
Where this field is now.
Where the island there, it didn't exist.
How far are we from the Amazon now?
1 kilometer maybe?
So over 50 years, 1 kilometer of sediment has built up so that now we're in the middle of the forest.
The flooded forest is very dynamic.
Although the river may change course, some traditions here remain constant, and Céline and Fabienne receive a special farewell from this woman who likes tourists and loves her plants. So far, Marmirawa has been a success, working proof that both nature and people can prosper together. But for the team, their time spent here has brought them solid evidence for hope. Céline now embarks on a 1,000-mile journey southwest to the rainforest near Pucallpa, Peru, where an exciting connection has been discovered between the Amazon's plants and the rest of the world. This discovery could be the strongest testament that keeping the forest alive and productive is more economically profitable than cutting it down.
Even with all the bad news about the rainforest, I like to really present the good news. Because with over 100,000 species of plants here, the Western model of science has really only looked at about a tiny 3% of that. So there's a huge potential here in the Amazon. I tend to be perhaps the most optimistic person about the future of the Amazon because of that, even with all the challenges.
John, what is this?
It's cacao, theobromine cacao. It's, most people would probably recognize the finished product and think of it as a convenience store junk food, but this is where chocolate actually starts. There's a wild tree growing in the Amazon.
What are the beneficial properties?
What's interesting right now is a lot of research going on about cacao. In fact, there's a recent study done at Harvard University that showed it actually increases the elasticity of blood vessels, which means it's good for the #1 killer in America, cardiovascular health.
So are you saying we should eat more chocolate?
Eat more dark chocolate. There's a big difference.
Uña de gato, cat's claw.
Cat's claw, a very, very key plant. I would say it's one of the top 3 plants in the entire Amazon. When you slice that vine, it's a great source of drinking water. And then the inner bark, where's that flesh-colored ring around the outside?
Yes.
It has a host of oxindole alkaloids, which have been shown to stimulate macrophage phagocytosis activity, really kickstart the immune system. You can take this part, pull it out of the canopy, and the part that's left will just continue to grow. And it's to get this size again in 4 to 5 years.
Sustainable harvesting.
Sustainable harvesting, that's what it's about.
This is the camu camu, huh?
Oh, it is camu camu, which is indigenous to this part of the rainforest. And one of the unique characteristics about it, it grows right along the floodplain. When the rains come, the water rises 20, 30 feet during the rainy season. So these plants are completely underwater for the first several years of their life for several months. As those water recedes, that biomass settles down, then these plants are able to extract all those minerals and nutrients, and they end up in this fruit. It's got the highest naturally occurring source of vitamin C of any plant anywhere, and a profile of unique compounds that creates a biological terrain in the brain where the uptake of serotonin is enhanced, which means the world just becomes a better place. You know, it's a mood elevator. In the population, for example, the United States and Europe and the Western world, are problems, health problems and challenges very different than what you find upriver in the Amazon. When you really get upriver 2 or 3 days in a boat, you find other challenges, mosquito-borne issues and things like this, but you don't find the degenerative issues, cancer, arthritis, diabetes. So these same plants that we're talking about now, we've discovered a whole host of benefit for degenerative processes. I actually believe that they can reverse all of the degenerative health challenges that are out there as you really get to know them. Well, I think this is a very important part of creating a new future of sustainability in the Amazon because it actually assigns a real value to the Amazon basin. And when this has value, then the indigenous people become more empowered with the land rights and titles and deeds. You know, I see a whole new future and a whole new balance coming out of the Amazon.
Managing the Amazon, I look at it, should be managed like you manage a business. And that is the capital that has been given to us We need to manage it in a way that it provides interests, and that interest can be shared with the planet.
Talvez a ideia.
Maybe the idea of a sustainable use of natural resources as business would have been considered romantic 20 years ago. Now, it's possible. I believe it's possible to learn from our mistakes and to learn while making a difference in the present. Because if we don't make a difference in the present, we can hardly expect to have the future we hope for.
I think we are living the most important 20 years of this region. If we lose the fight for this region in the next 10 or 20 years, forget it.
We have to face up to this issue and find the solutions, but it's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of courage. And in the end, it's for the benefit of everyone. This Amazon is part of our life, whether we live here or not.
Stay tuned for more Jean-Michel Cousteau Ocean Adventures. But first,
save this Sunday for clashing.
This is a real battle of the sexes.
And dashing. For seduction.
The showiest males get the most mates.
And secrets.
Promise you'll not breathe a word of this.
Save this Sunday for nature and masterpiece. What females want, and sense and sensibility. Sunday night, starting at 8/7 Central on most PBS stations.
Play fun games and watch videos of beautiful and unusual underwater creatures. Get to know the divers. Explore the fragility of the Amazon. Go on your own ocean adventure at pbs.org. Jean-Michel Cousteau Ocean Adventures, Return to the Amazon, is available on DVD. To order, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-PLAY-PBS.
On the next Jean-Michel Cousteau Ocean Adventures, river dolphins, pirarucu, glaciers, and a journey into the unvisited Amazon to meet its forgotten people. All part of the adventure that lies ahead for Jean-Michel Cousteau and his team as they continue their search for new, sustainable solutions and to sound the alarm on the threats that could forever alter our future.
Production funding for Jean-Michel Cousteau Ocean Adventures is provided by...
We have only to look into each other's eyes to see the story of our planet. A few simple truths, the way hydrogen bonds with oxygen, the cadence and order of things, have lived there from the beginning. But if we change perspective and consider the notion of adding the human element to the period